Let's talk the cut. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk the cut. Woo!
Hey there, good evening, everybody. Hey, you all, it's Cutler here on the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel, the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club, whatever you want to call it these days. It's me. It really is Cutler here, and I'm live for 1800 seconds. I hope that you all are going to spend this time with me. I hope you're telling some friends to come on and Let's Talk to Cutler. Tell somebody that this guy's up there. He's talking about some real stuff, real life situations. And it's not about bad news. It's not about pessimism. It's not about really anything that's negative or down in the dumps, because we hear enough of that all the time. Every day, we hear enough negative situations on other modes of receiving information. So no, that's not what this channel is about at all. This channel is about inspiration. It's about motivation. It's about challenging ourselves to be our best and to show up our best self, even in the worst of situations. It's about challenging ourselves to find this place that's called better. It's about grabbing somebody's hand and pushing when necessary, pulling when necessary, prodding and poking when necessary, because we're all on this way. We're all on our way to this place that's called better. And I don't know about you, but better does not have to wait until 5 years from now. It doesn't have to wait for 5 days from now, 5 weeks, or anything like that. But I promise you that better happens as soon as you conceive it in your mind. Better happens when you believe it in your heart. Better happens when you think that it's possible for you. And we're just talking about possibilities. So I'm going to share some moments of inspiration, some moments of motivation, and really some moments of challenging. We don't like the challenge part. We like the inspiration. We like the motivation, but not so much the challenge, because the challenge makes us uncomfortable. It pushes us out of our comfort zone. It pushes us into this area where we don't always want to go. But I promise you that it is not until you challenge yourself that your best self will learn to show up consistently. Yeah, from time to time we'll hit a home run, but if you want to knock a grand slam every time, if you want to learn how to cause your best self to show up consistently, practice it and challenge yourself. You know, all of us from time to time, we have a good hit and miss. You know, I might hit today and make it a first base, hit tomorrow, make it a second base, hit tomorrow, make it a third base, hit tomorrow, the next day, and make a home run. But what about the times when I swing and I get out? We don't like to talk about that. Those moments are decreased in the face of consistently practicing to show up your best self. Those moments are decreased when we challenge ourselves to become better. Enough with that. Listen, do me a favor. Tell somebody else to come on. Let's talk to Cutler. Meanwhile, I want to do a shout out to all the LTTC VIPs, the ones who made it into the chat room before I did. It's another Tuesday, and I want to say thank you for spending this time with me. Hey, it is the 4th of April already. What are you all doing for the month of April? Happy birthday to anybody who's celebrating a birthday in the month of April. Tonight, you all, I want to talk about how to pace yourself. How to pace yourself. Now, that is going to be a challenge for some of us, because a lot of times people are in a hurry all the time. I want to talk about really how we can pace ourselves. And I want to tell you the importance of just pacing ourselves. But let me do my shout outs first, and I'll come right back. So I want to do a shout out to the first 3 people that I see on this end who jumped into the chat. It's good to see some of you all just jump right on into the chat. It's good to see all of you. But I want to shout out those who are in the chat. Looks like Andy Cutler, who says, get aboard. That's right. Bobby Dunmore, good to see you, my brother, who says, greetings all. Hattie Boone says, good evening, everybody. But let's talk about how to pace ourselves, you all. Are you in a hurry all the time? I don't know if I'm talking to the right people tonight, because maybe you're not the ones who are in a hurry all the time, but maybe you know people who are in a hurry all the time. Put it in the chat. Let me know if that's you. You know, y'all talk back to me so that I know that we will have something meaningful to share with those who are always in a hurry. And it might not be us. I know people who are in a hurry all the time. They rush to get to a red light. They race against the GPS. Now, the GPS may say you're going to arrive at your destination at 8:30. There are people that I know who actually will challenge the GPS, will race and rush so that they can make it there before 8:30. Racing the GPS, why? I know that we all want to get as much as we can, as quickly as we can. Again, the question is why? Get as much as you can, but does that as quickly as you can always have to apply? What are you going to do when you get it? Are you going to hoard it? Are you going to store it and do nothing with it? Are you going to put it away and just gloat and tout and brag about what you have? I hope not, you all. And one of the reasons I want to have this conversation is because stress is real, high blood pressure is real, cardiac arrest is real, heart attacks are real, strokes are real. And a lot of times it's fun and games until it's no longer fun and game. Learn how to pace yourself. Learn how to pace yourself. I read something today that says stress makes you believe that everything has to happen right now. Stress makes you believe that everything has to happen right now. And can I tell you, it does not. Everything does not have to happen right now. In fact, some of the most amazing things tend to happen when you least expect them. And some of the most amazing things even sometimes happen at a moment when you're about to give up. Stop thinking that everything has to happen right now, because it doesn't. I want to talk to us from a place of reality, you all. Learn to pace yourself. Bobby Dumbo says, I think the older I get, I feel I don't have much time left. And that may be true. And sometimes we feel like we haven't either managed the time well that we had, and we think that there's so much left to do and I have to get this. But pace yourself, slow down, because you may not have as much time left, but at least do well by yourself with the time that you have, and you don't want to stress out. So you may think that you don't have a lot of time left, but one of the things that you don't want to do is shorten the amount of time that you think that you don't have. Did that make sense? If I think I only have 5 years left and then I'm in a hurry to get stuff done, if I stress myself out, I might cut my 5 years down to 2. So you don't want to do that. Some of the most amazing things tend to happen when you least expect them, even sometimes at the moment when you're about to give up. Let's talk about learning to pace yourself. Don't stay in a hurry all the time. You don't have to be the first person to get there all the time. You don't have to be the first person to finish the test all the time. You don't have to be first to everything. As a matter of fact, I worry about people who feel the need to be first in everything all the time. I believe in achievement. I believe sometimes in overachievement, but I tell you, do not stress yourself out. And one of the things that you can learn to do in terms of not stressing yourself out, get with the right pack of people. Now, I didn't say compete with them, but get with the right pack of people who are heading in the same direction that you're heading. At least you know you're in the right direction. Because if you have people who share the same interest as you, if you are with people who have a common denominator, you know you're in the right pack, you're heading in the right direction. One of the things that I can say about those of us who collectively come together on this channel, these Tuesdays and Thursdays, this is a good pack because we're heading to a space and a place that's called better. We're not competing with each other, but we're heading to a space that brings out the good in us, that brings out the better in us, that brings out the best in us. And when you're with the right pack, you don't have to look up and compete with them. You just look down at your own feet, just know that you're in the right direction, that you're in good company, and just pace yourself. You're heading in the right direction. All you want to do is steady your own feet. You don't want to try to march to the beat of their drums, but just know that you're in good company. So you don't have to look up at anybody's feet other than yours. And just make sure that you're aligned with good people, that you got a good rhythm going, that you have a good pace going. So, Cutler, how can we learn to pace ourselves? Do you have any tips or helpful hints? Absolutely, you all. Absolutely. We're doing a myriad of things throughout the day, a multiplicity of things that we do over the course of our lives. And one of the things that we need to do is find the proper speed or the proper pace for doing the various things that we do. Some things we can do faster than other things. Some we have to go a little more slowly. So find the speed that works for you for the respective activity that you're trying to accomplish. Some people can clean a house quickly. Some people can wash a car fast. Some people can do a number of things fast. Other people have to do them slowly. So find the proper pace or speed for doing the activity that works for you. Some people can prepare dinner in 5 minutes, looks like. For other people, it might take 55 minutes. But whatever your pace is, find the pace that works for you. And when you find, and that's important, you all, because that's when you don't compete with everybody else. You do what you do as best and at the speed that you can do it. So if you think of this continuum of speed from very slow to very fast, find out the speed that works for you for your respective activities. Some people can jump up, shower, and get dressed in 15 minutes. Other people, it takes them a half hour, 45 minutes. Go at your own pace. Find the pace that works for you. Absolutely, done more. Prioritizing really, really helps us with pacing ourselves. And after you find the pace or the speed that works for you, let me suggest this as well, you all. When you have a lot to do and you have these monumental and gargantuan tasks that you want to accomplish, learn to break them down into smaller, more palatable tasks. Learn to break down these large things into smaller goals so that you can accomplish them. Maybe you can accomplish them in a few days as opposed to several months. Maybe you can accomplish them in a few weeks as opposed to several months. So just think from that perspective. How can I break this large task down into smaller bits and smaller pieces so I will have something to celebrate? Learn how to do these things that will help you celebrate you. That's pacing yourself. Cutler, while you're on this kick, again, because if you're just joining late, stress is real. High blood pressure is real. Cardiac arrest, heart attacks are real. Strokes are real. Manifested illnesses because of the anxiety that we hold in our bodies, that's real. And we're moving into the second quarter of the year. And some of us muddled through the first quarter, and we were exhausted and breathless by the time we got to the end of the first quarter. I'm telling you to pace yourself. Learn to break down things in a fashion that you can tackle them. Stop trying to feel like you have to do everything in one fell swoop. You don't. You don't have to do everything in one fell swoop. You don't have to do everything in a fairly short amount of time. Break things down in a manner whereby you can tackle them. Can I tell you another one, you all? Because if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself in a state and a stage of exhaustion. You're going to find yourself in a state and a stage of frustration. You're going to find yourself in a place that's not healthy to yourself if you don't pace yourself. This is important to me. And then know when to put some things on the back burner and when to just hand some things off to other people. It's called delegation. It's called asking for help. Know when to just delegate it, to give it to somebody else. Know when to put it on the back burner and not give it to anybody else, but just wait. That's the whole notion of prioritizing. Or know when to ask for help, you all. Sometimes you might have to hire somebody to help you. Sometimes you might just have to ask for help, either pay for it or get somebody to volunteer to help you, or just put it on the back burner and don't try it at all. Stress is real. I keep saying this. And there is no bringing people back that we lose from strokes and heart attacks and stress and all of that. There's no bringing them back. So I want to talk to us from a place of concern tonight. Pace yourself. Don't stress yourself out. You don't have to be the first person to accomplish everything. Ask for help. Put it on the back burner. Say, I'll get to it later. And there's some things that you have to use good judgment and good sense and say, if I get to it, if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. Sometimes you just have to take that vantage point. You have to take that position. That's what we call a tautology. If I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. So what? Let it be true. Let that be true. Just don't stress out. Use some good judgment, and then kind of tell us something else that we need to do. You all, we need to learn how to take a break from time to time. There's a reason why when I was in elementary school, we had something called a recess. I think they still have them. But there's a reason why we had something called a recess. Because even with the greatest of intellectual capacity that one might have, your attention span wears thin. You reach a point of what we call, you reach a saturation point. It's almost like a sponge when you have absorbed all that you can absorb. And then if anything else starts coming to the sponge, it drips out. And you want to get to a point where you're not dripping out more than you are retaining. That's what we call a saturation point. When you've reached your saturation point, when you've absorbed all that you can, it's time to take a break. When you get to a point in life, or a point with a particular goal or a particular uh, 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 aspiration that you've set, you have to learn, all right, now I need to take a break. Now I need to take a recess. Now I need to take a time out. Especially when you are engaged in these stressful and strenuous things. And you need to learn to do that before your body tells you you need to do it. Because your body might tell you to do it in a way that you cannot bounce back from. Taking a break gives you an opportunity to reflect on a situation. It gives you a chance to reflect on your urges and your behavior and how you responded to a certain situation. It gives you an opportunity to do some self-reflection. Take a break, for goodness sake. Let me see what you all are saying. It's good to see you all. It's good to see you all. Just tell other people tonight, we're just talking about how to pace yourself. Learn how to take a break. How not to feel as though I have to beat myself. I have to be the first all the time. And we've talked about this to you all, but it is so important within this whole context of pacing yourself. Make sure, I'm going to say this again every time I feel like saying it, I need to share this with us. Make sure that you check in with yourself. Check on your emotional self. Check on your physical self. Check on your mental self. Make sure you check all of those levels. As often as you need to, check in with yourself. Whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's mentally, whether it's socially, whether it's financially, or whatever the case may be, learn to check in on yourself. Just as you may hear the State of the Union address or the State of the State address, what is your State of You address tonight? What is it? What is the State of You address tonight? When you consider your state in all of those areas, mentally, socially, financially, emotionally, in all of those areas, is there some rumbling that detects a particular problem might become overwhelming? Do you feel a little winded in some areas? Do you feel a little off kilter in some areas? Or are you okay in all of those areas? And sometimes you may be okay in one area and not necessarily another. Check in with yourself. Make a note and say, yes, let me see, how am I doing physically? How am I doing emotionally? How am I doing socially? And let me just pause there. That's important because within the context of the world where we now live, and having been affected like we have been with this whole pandemic, a lot of us are not doing as well socially as we once were, say over 3 years ago. So you have to ask yourself, how am I doing socially when it comes to connecting with people and interacting with people? How am I doing? Am I suffering a deficit in that area? How am I doing mentally? Changing the way I've done life and having to make these adjustments, changing the way we do school and business and church and everything else. Has that had an impact on you that you didn't stop to take a look at? We're 3 years into this thing. How are we doing? Check on yourself. Make sure again that there are no rumblings in any of those areas that might suggest you are about to become overwhelmed. I want to help us tonight, you all. I really, really do. I want to help us tonight. And then can I suggest this? With all that you have to do, with all that is on your plate, make sure you set some real standards to compare yourself with. Cutler, why is that important? Because we sometimes look at the person that we used to be, and here is my moment of transparency. We sometimes look at the moments we used to have, what we could do once upon a time, how I did this back in the day. Or 30 years ago, this is what I did. But for some of us, or we say, when I was in my 30s, I did this. Well, some of us were in our 30s almost 30 years ago, and for some, even more. So when you start comparing yourself with yourself, because a lot of times, I think we've gotten it down pat whereby we don't compare ourselves with other people. But when we start comparing ourselves with ourself, make sure that you compare yourself with a recent self. And stop comparing yourself with the you of 30 years ago. Your life was different. Your mind was different. Your body was different. I stopped comparing myself with the me of 20 and 30 years old. Why? Because sometimes it was heartbreaking. I had to stop comparing myself with the me of even 10 years ago or 5 years ago in some respect. Some of you all know that I broke my foot and then I had to have my ankle reconstructed. That was in 2017 and 18. And I've had to adjust. I've had to make several life adjustments. And sometimes it brings about moments of sadness because there are physically some things that I can't do that I used to do prior to the injury. But you know what, you all? I stopped comparing myself in those areas. I stopped comparing myself to the me of 10 years ago. Some things I just can't do. I can't jump up and physically run like I used to. I can't get out on the tennis court and play tennis like I used to. Can't do it. Would love to do it. Would absolutely love to do it, but I cannot. I physically cannot. So I stopped comparing myself with the me of 10 years ago. I hope and pray that at some point I'll be able to get back on the tennis court. I hope and pray that at some point I'll be able to run like I used to do. But when you start comparing yourself with yourself, compare yourself with a recent self. Compare yourself with a realistic self. See, I want that to help us tonight because we say to me, Cutler, you're right, man. I don't compare myself with anybody else. All I do is compare myself with me. Which me are you comparing yourself with? 30 years ago, I was 40 pounds lighter. It was 30 years ago. Be honest. Be fair, rather. That's the word. Be fair to you. Be fair to yourself. Be fair to yourself, because sometimes now we work within the parameters of limits. We have limits. And whether they are physical limits that might involve chronic pain, whether they are social limits involving some kind of anxiety that we might have, whether they are limits that involve a number of things, we just have to be careful. All right? I'm not going to be here much longer, but I just want to make sure that we are really learning how to pace ourselves. Learning how to pace ourselves and not feeling like we have to be in a hurry all the time. I'll end by sharing the same quote that I opened with. Sometimes we're in a hurry all the time. If not us, then people that we know. But remember this, you all. Stress makes you think, makes you believe that everything has to happen right now. It doesn't. It does not have to happen right now. I want you all to please share this conversation with other people. And I purposefully took my time. I purposefully changed the pace of my speech because I wanted it to sink in. And I wanted you all to hear from my heart that I'm so serious about that. And I'm concerned about all of us making sure that we pace ourselves, making sure that we take care of ourselves, making sure that we do what we can not to shorten the time. Dunmore, I hear you, not to shorten the time that we have left. Yes, if I have 20 years left, I want to have 20 good years. I don't want to shorten those 20 years down to 10 years because I've stressed myself out trying to get everything and trying to do everything and try to be first all the time. Do me a favor, you all. Next time we meet, tell somebody else, come on and let's talk to Cutler. I don't know how inspiring and motivating this may be, but I hope it challenged you to think about how fast you're moving in life, how fast you're trying to move in life. I hope it caused you to think about, do I need to slow down or do I need to speed up in some areas? Or why do I move like I move? I'm glad we got together on this Tuesday. So thank you for allowing me to share this space wherever you've allowed me to come, whether it's in your living room, your dining room, your kitchen, your bedroom, your back porch, or you're out on a walk, wherever you are. Thank you for allowing me to come into that space with you. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Let's make sure that we keep our heads up and keep our hopes up. Lots of things are going on in the world, you all, but make sure that you stay safe and stay sane. And know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. Until the next time, tell somebody, come on and let's talk to Cutler. Hey, I'll see you all soon. See you next time. Good night.